content over everything.
That's not Nietzsche. I'm not sure Nietzsche invented that.
Yeah. No, he did.
What did you study?
But he had an argument against it.
You don't like doing a
He's a
camera, I know.
computer scientist.
But Nietzsche is not that interesting, to be honest, man. I find
It's more interesting than computer science.
Just Zarathustra is a fascinating kind of drama, isn't it?
But I know a lot. Yeah, I know.
The prophet goes around and he tells people stuff they don't want to know about it. It's really cool.
The interesting thing is that he actually puts Zoroaster as the opposite of what Zoroaster really believes.
Yeah,
so it's the second coming of Zoroaster, which Zoroaster comes and says, actually, what I preached before wasn't correct, but what I'm preaching now is actually the right thing.
So I'm just influenced by the intellectual.
We're on film. Not that I want you to do that off the film.
Okay.
Well, you're the gay one.
Really?
Did you catch the one and only smart thing that I said?
Okay.
That was good, man.
That was the one and only smart thing that I said. I think you got it, so that's good.
Anything else about Nietzsche? You know quite a lot.
No, I just know. To be honest, it's too.
Schopenhauer?
No, I don't know about Schopenhauer.
You must like shopping. You're an atheist.
Shopping mall.
Shopping malls are quite horrible. Yeah. Arthur Schopenhauer, the German philosopher.
Never heard of it.
Really? Oh, I'm surprised.
Don't patronise.
No.
I don't.
No, but going back to Greek philosophy, I want to talk about metaphysics. Yeah. I want to talk about metaphysics. I don't know if it was Plato or Aristotle, right?
Plato.
Who came up with metaphysics, right? But one of them came up with the idea.
Aristotle.
Now, a lot of people think that metaphysics is a really good idea. And
why is it called metaphysics? Interesting story about why Aristotle came to call, why it's known as metaphysics. It's to do with Aristotle and his books.
What's it got to do with physics?
Exactly, because it was the book after physics in his book and his scrolls. So he had a book called Physics, and then after physics in Greek is metaphysics. That's how it's got its name. Not because of some.
Meta doesn't mean after.
I thought meta means above or something.
In the Greek,
Isn't it big? Meta.
There's mega.
Metaphysics is something incorporeal.
Meta.
So that's why, because it's simply the next book along in the series of books after physics. Anyway, it's of no interest in this.
So there's certain people who are there's certain pagans on the internet, right? And they think that pagans, right? They want to go back to the original thing, yeah. And they think that metaphysics is the correct way to look at religion, right? Metaphysics, but I tell them that it's wrong because metaphysics, okay, was actually a move away from the original Greek religion. So
all religion are based on metaphysics.
The people who came up with metaphysics, whether it was Aristotle or Plato, they were actually considered skeptics. So they didn't agree with the Greek religious orthodoxy. So they moved away from the original Greek pagan religion and they produced metaphysics. So and then that's how the movement of rationality went forward, because the original Greek myths, they weren't rational, they were kind of irrational, so they wanted to rationalize it. But the problem is, that the original the Greek myths, they were more poetic, so they weren't rational.
This is what's the word? Horseshit. That's excessive. No, seriously.
It's not horseshit. It makes sense.
2 words.
That's 2 words.
Makes
Okay, just shit for sure. No. So with respect, have you read Plato, The Republic by Plato?
No, I didn't read
or Pluto or Plato? Okay, what about the myth of the cave? Have you read the story? The myth
Yeah, I
of
heard
the
about that.
cave?
Can you go over it?
But you're saying it's all irrational and everything else. It's very rational.
Of the cave.
But that's the problem,
The
yeah.
analogy of the cave.
Yeah, the analogy of the cave, yeah. The shadow in the cave, isn't it?
It's
That
not
one.
an actual. Well, it is an analogy, but it was actually a myth because it didn't actually happen, and it's a story about how we perceive things in the
shadow,
reality.
isn't it?
Yeah, but this was a myth that was told to is very rational and to explain how reality actually is.
Yeah.
You're saying it's just an old crappy old myth, but it's not. It's a very profound insight into the nature of reality, i.e. that there is the unseen beyond which we can perceive with our senses, but we get intimations from the shadows of the forms, the perfect form of goodness, the perfect form of chair, perfect form of a tree, which exists
but this was
in the metaphysical realm.
But there's also more to it when the guy that leaves the cave and comes back, how they shun him.
People
when
think
they
that
have a different opinion
exactly.
and
They mock him.
People think that this is a progress, right? But what it actually is a move away from the original orthodox, artistic or poetic religious type of religion that they had in Greece. But because they didn't understand their religions anymore, they wanted to rationalize it, so they went into.
So what did Aristotle do? What was Aristotle's emphasis? It wasn't like with Plato with these forms and metaphysics. What was Aristotle concerned about in his? What really preoccupied him? What's he famous for doing?
I don't know.
He founded lots of modern disciplines. He founded biology, he founded zoology, he founded empirical, where you classify taxonomy, where you classify and species according to their genus. The genus. So he was an empiricist, wasn't he? Actually famous for founding the modern scientific method in some ways. Whereas Plato was concerned with the abstract and the unseen.
Yeah, exactly. So, but my criticism is more against metaphysics and things like that, and even philosophy. I'm a big critic of philosophy. I don't think philosophy makes sense.
I can see to me there's different kinds of. I mean, they say very different things. They're
Like
idealists.
Nietzsche, you know, just a waste of
Have you read Kant?
I did a long time ago. I can't remember. Tell me what was up.
Which one did you read?
Well, are you talking about his ethics, his epistemology, or?
It was the new book. I remember something introducing Kant.
Sounds like the Grammar Critic of Morals. There's quite a brief little book, but his great works on epistemology, the Critic of Pure Reason, the practical.
I read Wittgenstein. I remember I read Wittgenstein, and then I don't know about Kant. I read Kant. I can't remember. I read a bit of it. I just saw a small book.
But it's not a bit. It's a huge tome and body of thought, and he's interacting with the empiricists like David Hume and the idealists as well, idealist thinkers. He's not just a standalone thinker. You can just read like that. You've got to understand what's going on, particularly with Descartes as an idealist.
I like Descartes
and Hume. He's reacting against idealism and rationalism, and producing his own kind of synthesis.
I think the only real philosopher that I respected was Descartes. That one thing that he asked about the.
What have you read of Descartes?
It was that specific thing that what was it? Ergo, that cogito, ergo sum. That one.
Well, have you read the Meditations? The dialogues.
That was the only thing. Yeah, that book. There's only consider that one book to be the only philosophical book worth. And the only thing that it tells you is that if you take philosophy too seriously, you end up questioning the whole world. That's basically what philosophy is, right? It's the use of language, okay, to question reality.
What was the point of the cogito ergo sum? What was the point of that? Because an argument goes on after that, but he reaches that point. I think, therefore I am. Why is he saying that? What's that mean, and how does he develop that afterwards?
Well, he seems to be saying that because I can perceive, that's the only proof that I exist, or because I can think. That's the only.
So he doubt everything else apart from the one thing that he himself actually does doubt. So,
exactly, doubts everything,
So what happens after that? Is that the end of the argument? He says all I can think of is that I exist and that's it, or does he move beyond that?
I don't know. I don't know.
See, this is what I remember when my first paper I did at university when I was doing my degree in philosophy was precisely on this subject. And I confess, I've never told anyone apart from my tutor, I only got a B rather than A because I got this wrong, this crucial bit. And the reason is I said that Descartes was a skeptic. But he wasn't a skeptic. It was a mistake. And A.C. Grayling, the philosopher, he was my tutor. He taught philosophy at Oxford, and he said no, he wasn't, because what he does, he demolishes the traditional foundations of science. That's the Ptolemaic science and all that, and he wants to refound modern science on a secure base of knowledge. And so what he does is whatever he could doubt, he doubts. He doubts his senses, his sight, his hearing, his taste, his everything. The one thing he couldn't doubt was that he doubted, therefore he existed. But then he worked from that through what's called the ontological argument to secure knowledge. Our senses are ultimately reliable because God exists and He is good and will not deceive us. I know it sounds like a weird, where did that come from? But that's exactly, but that's what he argued. God would not deceive us because God is good, and we know through our clear and distinct ideas of the world that we think we can perceive things, and God wouldn't deceive us in making us and making this world. And God is a necessary being through the ontological argument, and therefore, because God exists, our world must be ordered as we think it is, because God wouldn't have us believe things which are untrue. And therefore, we can do science based on the certainty of God's existence, funnily enough.
So he uses
That's how I
the
understand.
skeptic argument in order to show how skepticism
But he was never a
isn't
skeptic.
to be relied.
He believed in the certainty of knowledge, but he was actually called a rationalist.
But my point was that philosophy, that this is, in my opinion, the only worthy philosophical book, because it tells us that philosophy doesn't actually produce any value, because he uses philosophy to actually argue against the all of existence, and then he shows that that I can only prove that I exist myself. But it's only a philosophical argument. So it's only with philosophy that you can argue against existence, and the same with religion, right? Religion is like a type of philosophy, like Abrahamic religions are a type of a philosophical religion. They argue against reality. They say that what you perceive is not what it is, but it's more. But they use words to try and make that point.
No, I think
so. It basically you've got reality on one side, like physical reality, and then you've got logic and words. So what they try and do, is philosophers, they focus on the words, and that's the same with religion.
Philosophy does.
They focus on the words.
The sort of thing you're doing in British universities. I was quite horrible when I did. I discovered that philosophy in British universities is analytic philosophy. It's not like the philosophy of Sartre and existentialism. It's a philosophy of linguistic analysis and analysis of language and what we mean by.
But even the word philosophy means the love of words, right? So what I'm saying is that doesn't mean that. Because there's two ways of looking at it, right? There's two types of language, right? There's prose and then there's poetry, right? So earlier religion was always in poetry, right? In poetic form, like Greek meters and old Indic meters, Vedic meters. They were all in poetry. All the old religions were in poetry, right? All of them, all the Indo-European ones specifically, yeah. But then later on, the Abrahamic religions, they're all in prose. Now philosophy is always in prose. So you got one hand, you got the poetry, and you got the prose. Like the philosophy is always in prose. But what you can do in poetry, you can't do it in prose. So in the old Greek religion, it was always poetic. But with Plato or Aristotle, they went away from that tradition and they became they went into philosophy, and that's how they created metaphysics. And that's the route it's gone down now, away from the poetic form and the artistic form, but more into like a rational.
I think Plato, all his dialogues, we only know Plato through the dialogues. Socrates. Sorry, who's the main guy for Plato, isn't it? Socrates. Yeah. Through Plato's dialogues, which are dramatic, artistic dialogues. They're not analysis of language and all that. But also people like Kierkegaard, who wrote fiction, if you like, either or.
But they were called skeptics, right? When they the whole Plato school.
Skeptic. He was an existentialist. He was a skeptic. No.
They were called skeptics, like a skeptic school, isn't it? That's why I read.
No, I don't think
Aristotle wasn't a skeptic, or Plato. Well, some of them were, right?
But people like Hume were skeptics.
No, but I'm talking about those early Greek ones that came up with metaphysics. Is it?
Plato's Perfect Republic rejected all poets. That's the basic.
Exactly what I'm saying. Rejected all poets. That's what I'm saying. Exactly. He was going against the original traditional forms of the Greek religion.
But I'm just saying that the form in which Plato's dialogues took were not dry treatises. They were fictional dialogues. They weren't actually recording of dialogues. They were creative literature. And if you read them, you almost think you're watching an actual real dialogue between two people. You're not. It's an invented dialogue.
It's quite interesting that Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad too, rejected poets. He was against poetry.
Well, there's poetry and there's poetry.
And the Abrahamic, all the Abrahamic religions are non-poetic compared to
the Song of Songs in the Old Testament is poetry. The Psalms are, I would think, poetry. But you actually get rhyming in the Hebrew. You can see A B A B A B A B. You can see the rhyming. It's like there in English. So there's poetry in the Bible.
Psalms are a hymn book of
Some of them are actually poetry.
Yeah, but hymns are part of it. But it's not integral to. It's not the Bible.
The Psalms are part of the Bible, and the Song of Songs is part of the Bible.
Yeah, it's part of it. But Jesus wasn't a poet though.
Well, Jesus also taught in parables, which is hardly. Some of which are distinct. No, they're not poems, but they're parables.
It's interesting this move away from a more artistic or poetic type of religion to a more literal or philosophical, analytical type, which I think doesn't actually work. I think thousands of years down the line we haven't really achieved anything, and we're not capable of producing the same level of type of religion.
I think what you're saying was something that Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher, complained a great deal about in the 19th century, about this sterile, arid philosophy of Hegel, and he went back to the simple forms of belief and existentialism, and so he would agree with you. But philosophy is very diverse. It's not like one thing. You get philosophers who believe opposite things and have very different takes on life. Some are atheists, some centre just on God. Bishop Berkeley, the famous idealist philosopher, believed that we only exist in the mind of God. Without God, when God doesn't perceive us, we don't exist. So
I think that would, but that's within the context of a Christian worldview, isn't it? That wouldn't make sense to an atheist anyway, right? So
there were no atheists in that time.
Exactly, yeah. So
they all been roasted at the stake, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
An atheist roast him at the stake. So there wouldn't be many of them around.
Unless you're rich and you can believe what you like.
That's true.
But not publicly.
That's true. Unless you sleep, some of them.
I think doing that philosophy is great fun.
Yeah, it's alright, but I think that the whole idea of like rationality, or even the Abrahamic religions and trying to explain stuff, like with Descartes, it's interesting. Why would you question the fact that you're here anyway? Because if you didn't have language, you could never question the world you live in.
He was trying to. Here's a question of epistemology.
It's interesting that
how do we know things for sure?
It's interesting that the word,
given our fallibility of the human perception. So if we say if we look at a stick in the water, it looks as if it's twisted because of the fraction of light. So our senses betray us. To pull the stick out is actually not broken or twisted. So our senses betray us. How do we know that we perceive reality just as it is? Because physicists today tell us that colours don't really exist. It's the way we perceive reality. They don't know. They don't exist independently of our perceptions of them. It's the interaction between our perception and the chemicals and the physics that happens.
Well,
They don't really exist.
There's a spectrum of rays, right? There's energy
Take a chair. If you look under an electron microscope, what would you see? If you put a chair under an electron microscope, would you see a bit of wood? You'd see mostly nothing. You'd see empty space. You might see some atoms. It wouldn't be brown. No, but our perception of it as a chair is a human apprehension.
But there is something there there is something. There's a difference between this brown and this white that's making it look brown to me and white here. It's not the same thing. Right?
You put it under a microscope, you won't see the brown.
There's a physical difference between that brown there and that white there, right? There is something there.
So your apprehension,
it's not in my head.
Your apprehension of it is brown, arguably, is a human apprehension. It's not there in.
Whether it's brown or black or blue, it doesn't matter. The fact that it's a different colour to that, that's something which is physical.
But inside you're red, right? Because you're filled with other stuff. You're not all the same colour.
Possibly green.
And the clothes are dyed on the surface only. Really. It's not go all the way in most of the time.
But that's irrelevant.
You see, let me give a good example. A great philosopher and why philosophy is so important. Wittgenstein, who you mentioned earlier, asked a really, really important philosophical question, and he said, "Why is there something rather than nothing? Why is there something?"
Only a philosopher would ask that question because only a philosopher.
It's a really important question, isn't it?
Because it's not an important question because there is something. So we have to accept that there is something. There's no way to go.
Why do we have to accept this? He's asking, why is it? Are you simply saying that material substances always existed for eternity?
But it does exist, right?
Well, we've got a Big Bang to deal with. First of all, we go back 13 billion years.
But it's all irrelevant. The fact is, we are here and they exist. So why? You can't go back to. You can't. There's certain things you just have to accept. This is again about.
Why do we have to accept it?
Because it is, right? So you can't deny that I'm standing in front of you, right?
No, I'm not denying it. He's asking questions that go beyond the everyday, like what's the cost of a pint of milk, or what's the time. He's actually saying, why is there anything at all rather than just nothing? And that's one of the most basic questions you go. That's what philosophers do. They go beyond the mundane and the trivial that we occupy ourselves, and they ask us fundamental questions of reality.
Do you think that question can ever be answered or produce any value?
Yes, it can be answered very easily.
No, if you're not a Muslim, I mean.
Well, a Christian would answer the same way as a
No,
Muslim.
if you're not a Christian.
A Jew would answer the question.
I'm saying an atheist.
A Zoroastrian would answer the question.
A pure philosopher. Can a pure philosopher answer that question?
Pure philosopher?
Yeah,
as opposed to an impure one.
An atheist philosopher, can you answer that question?
Pure? Hang on, where'd you get the idea that pure philosophy is atheist? Where'd you get that idea
I mean,
most philosophers have believed in God.
Yeah, well, but it doesn't matter. I'm talking about a philosopher that doesn't believe in a religion. Only using philosophy, can you answer that question?
There are many philosophers who believe in God.
But I don't want to confuse your belief in God and we're talking about philosophy, but I just want to talk about.
I would say, why is it similar to nothing? Because the uncaused cause of all being brought this universe into existence. Now that's actually as Sama in the Quran, actually a paraphrase.
But that whole
the uncaused cause of being.
The argument, the ontological argument is a fallacy. It doesn't work.
That's not the ontological argument.
Yeah, that is the argument you're making.
No, the ontological is based on reason, which says God is that which nothing greater can be conceived. Yeah. That's Anselm's formulation. What I'm talking about is the cosmological argument.
Yeah, the argument is a fallacy as well.
Why is it a fallacy? You just can't say it is.
Tell me again, and we'll go through it.
So tell you which again?
Just go for that argument, the cosmological argument.
I'm saying that the reason the cosmos exists at all is because an uncaused cause of all being brought it into existence. It's a necessary. God is a necessary being. We are contingent. We might not be here. We don't have to be here, but we are brought into existence. And that's an argument that Christians, Jews, Muslims, and others agree with.
I had this discussion with Hashim before, right? And there's a philosopher in India, and his name was then I forgot his name. His name was that guy from Kashmir. What was his name though? I forgot his name. I can't remember his name. He was quite a famous guy actually, right? But he was actually a Muslim, but he countered this argument. He goes, the argument doesn't work, and I agree that this argument doesn't work. And it's simply
give me reason.
And it's a logical fallacy. And the reason it doesn't work is that you say that this God is a necessary being, right?
I never mentioned God.
This being is
I said that the uncaused cause of all beings, which some people call God, but let's be fair, I didn't specify God. But anyway.
But if this cause is uncaused, right? It must be eternal.
Yes.
And if it's eternal, that means, and you're saying that it's caused God, right? It's caused the universe to exist.
Yes.
So you got something which is eternal,
yes.
And that thing causes the universe to exist, right?
Yes.
That means that the universe must be eternal as well.
Why?
Because you have something which is eternal, okay, and it causes something else, which is the universe, right? So at each possible point, at any possible point, that thing which is eternal is going to exist, right? And at that point, because it causes the universe, it's going to cause the universe. So at every point, the universe will exist.
I'll explain why that's a fallacy. If you read the last 3 books of that brilliant theologian, St. Augustine, in the 4th century, he wrote a book called The Confessions, and the last 3 books, one of them is to do with the nature of time. And he anticipated, actually agreed with Einstein on this, amazingly. Augustine was around in the 4th, 5th centuries AD. He's a Roman citizen, and he, through sheer brilliance, anticipated what Einstein said. But what they both agreed on is that when people say what happened before the Big Bang, that's a mistaken question, because as Augustine said, time and space were created at the same time. You cannot have space without time and time without space. So there is no
time
before.
is not important for my argument.
You have to, no. So, but this is my point. When we
As a different state, I didn't say time.
What I'm saying is, why is it logical for God to, for the uncaused cause of all that it is to create the universe? It's not a logical contradiction. It's because God, who is, if you like, is the eternal uncaused cause, creates time and space at the same time. So there's no inconsistency or problem if space and time are created at the same time. Only if you separate them out.
Right, is that if let's use the word God, right, to be on the same level. Okay. So you're saying that God is eternal, or God is always existing, or necessary or eternal. Okay, both different.
It's
but
2 different words.
Yeah, we'll use the term eternal. Okay, but it also means necessary, right? As in any situation, God is existing. Okay. But then you say that God causes the universe. Okay. Yeah. So if in any given situation, if God exists and God causes the universe, in that situation the universe will also exist. So in every situation, the universe must also exist. Given that God is eternal and God causes the universe, so then the universe must also be eternal. And wherever you have God, then you got the universe.
There's a non sequitur there. You just inserted. Just because an eternal uncaused cause creates the universe, and that's why I mentioned about Einstein and Augustine. I really wanted to clarify this. He created space and time together.
Space and time is not important.
No, it's important to me. It may not be important to you.
Because not to this argument, though.
Because the eternal God willed to create something that was temporal. He is eternal. The universe is temporal.
Yeah.
Now, an all-powerful eternal being is free to do that. There's nothing incoherent about an uncaused cause creating beings who are contingent, temporary, mortal, that come into existence, go out of existence, i.e. us and the universe. An all-powerful being can do that. And that's why that's what Muslims believe, Christians and Orthodox Jews believe that too. And Sikhs as well believe that. So, in fact, most people believe that in the planet. So.
The cosmological argument that you're making, that the first cause argument, basically what you're saying, it doesn't stand up, because you can't, if you have something which is a finite, right, you can't go from a finite effect to an infinite cause. Why not? Because an infinite cause, okay, will always continue to cause that thing which it causes. So God causes the universe, so God is always existing, so God is always causing the universe.
That's why I said about the bit about space-time.
God is existing now, so he's causing the universe to exist even now.
That's because the example you're giving is not what I'm talking about. You're talking about an infinite series of causes. So what caused the first cause? There must have been a cause. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying that an uncaused cause of all being is the explanation of the universe that we see. I'm not talking about what caused the first cause and all that. That's a logical thing I'm not talking about.
But then you're saying
created
that the universe
space
is
and time.
eternal. But then you're saying the universe is eternal then, right?
No, I'm not. I'm saying it's finite by definition.
But is God eternal?
Well, I've already answered this.
So God, okay, so let's say that this pole, right, it extends all the way eternally, right?
No.
And it's God, yeah?
That analogy doesn't work. There's no analogy that we can give in our temporal realm of the eternity. There's a difference between eternity and everlastingness.
Yeah.
You get the distinction in philosophy.
Yeah.
Something can be eternal and something everlasting.
I think
everlasting means temporal duration. Temporal duration
You're
indefinitely.
You're making a false distinction.
But eternal.
You're making a false distinction. I don't care about time. I'm talking about different states of existence, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, look, either the universe exists.
Fast enough, you're in all places at the same time, which is essentially how you describe God. If you're everywhere at the same time.
No, I'm doing the ontology here. Ontology is a branch of philosophy. It's doing the nature of being itself. I'm not talking about God as an object in the universe, like other objects that we can compare and contrast. I'm saying that God is the uncaused cause of all that we see in space, in the space-time continuum.
But we spent a lot of time talking about philosophy. I thought that you would understand this simple logical concept, right? If you have something,
I love being patronised.
If you have something, if you have something that causes something else, let's say you got A, which causes B, right? Whenever you got A, you're gonna get B. That's just the definition of cause and effect. If this thing causes that thing, if this thing exists, okay, that thing is gonna exist. Now, if this thing is eternal, God, then that means that this thing has to be eternal as well. Because whenever,
Why?
Because this thing causes that thing. You understand what I'm saying? It's cause and effect. If this thing is there, if God exists, and God causes the universe, that means that the universe has to exist. It's just you can't get away from it.
There's a statement
no
there, I
way.
just don't agree.
Even Muslims have made this argument. You cannot get away
I
from
just
it.
don't see your claim that because the uncaused cause of all things makes something temporal, as he is within his power to do, that thing that is temporal must be eternal. I just don't see how you've argued that.
You've got
simply asserted it. You've not in any way demonstrated that must be eternal as well.
Okay, so
it mustn't be like him. By definition, if God creates something, God is a creator in Islam, then he must be different from that which he creates.
All right.
So he creates creatures who are not like him in their eternity.
So I'm going to put it to you like this, right? You're saying that a thing.
Hay fever.
Okay, just to go back to the basics. Okay, if something causes something else, if A causes B, right, and A exists, does that mean that B is going to exist or not?
You just said A causes B. So
yeah, so B exists, right?
Question,
yeah, so B exists, right? So now God, okay, he exists in a particular world. Let's say a particular world, whatever, right? World 1. God exists, right? And God causes the universe. So does the universe exist?
Yes.
Yeah. So in world 2, the same thing, right? God exists. Universe. World 3. Any possible world, okay, that exists, God is going to exist in that world, and God causes the universe. So the universe is going to exist in that world. So the universe always exists whenever God exists.
This is the ontological argument that if God can exist in some possible world, he must exist in every possible world. And this is put forward by some American philosophers now.
God already exists in every possible world. That's according to your definition.
No, I'm saying if he exists in one possible world as a necessary being, then by definition he must exist in all possible worlds because he's a necessary being. Once you admit the possibility of God, then he must exist.
Yeah.
That's the logic of some Christian philosophers in America. It's actually quite an interesting argument. Are you an atheist?
Yeah, I think you understand what I said though, right?
Are you an atheist?
Yeah.
Well, did you spell Muslim or a Sikh or something or other?
Yeah.
Which of those?
I don't want to say on camera.
Oh, a Muslim then.
No, I wasn't.
If he was a Sikh, he wouldn't bother. Okay. What led you to disbelieve in or reject the concept of God?
No, I think I was more interested in the philosophical discussion, to be honest. I don't want to get...
You see, I'm interested in philosophy, but also at the end of the day, if we're giving dawah or whatever, it matters that we actually address the issues that concern us. And if you have rejected the existence of God or the idea of God's existence, I'm actually curious to know why. I don't believe it's for logical reasons. So most atheists are angry at God, I've noticed. Have you noticed that atheists are actually quite emotionally engaged? They want to attack God all the time. They're very angry with God.
I like how you change the subject after you
They feel like they've been lied to, right?
I feel like... Are you atheist?
No, but that's what I understand. They feel like they've been lied to.
No, what it is like Christianity and Islam, certain religions are very forceful, okay? So when people disagree with it, they go through a period where they have to hide it, where they might feel like they're intimidated or oppressed in certain ways. So when they come out, they tend to come out quite strongly. So you find a lot of people that leave, not Christianity now, because Christians are quite easy, but Muslims now, if they ever leave, they'll be quite strong because, you know, they might have felt, but not me personally or anymore, but some Muslims, they might have felt that, you know, they were oppressed or in their community, they couldn't come out, so they bottled it up for a long time, and afterwards when they come out quite
Is that why they have so much hate for Muslims?
Yeah, it's because you know, cause you got to understand, if a lot of Muslims, they have to keep it a secret as well, innit? Do you know what I mean? And if they do say something against Islam, if they say they don't believe in it, it's like they get put down by everyone. Do you know what I mean? So obviously, like, there's a few people out there, when you go on YouTube and you see the ex-Muslims, that they might be quite
so
strong.
If I were to say, what were some of the reasons why you rejected the idea of a God, a transcendent God who created the universe?
I would say they're the same as what most people come out with. Like, there's nothing. I don't want to go into it because there's nothing special. People ask me this question like numerous times every day when I come here, like numerous times every day.
But you keep on coming back here. I notice you keep on coming back to the very place, the only place in London, in fact, in the United Kingdom, where you're going to get asked this question on a regular basis, and you keep on coming back here. So I ask you, so you must in some way invite this by coming back here at all, because you know this is the one place where you're going to be asked this very question.
To be honest, I don't normally come here to talk
you should
to
go to
Muslims.
McDonald's or go to Selfridges, and then
they
won't ask you about God in Selfridges. They'll ask you about your credit card.
We didn't start
but
this
here
conversation
we're going to ask
religion.
you about.
We didn't start talking about
God.
We didn't start talking about religion. We were talking about philosophy. Remember, we were talking about secular.
But the last
things.
15 minutes, we have been talking about
yeah,
God
exactly.
as a necessary
But what
being,
I'm saying is, I don't
which
come
is a
here,
religious subject.
I don't normally come here to talk about religion. That's what I'm saying. That's why I come
you just
here.
said you get regularly asked this here, so.
But yeah, I do regularly ask this question. Whenever I bring up the topic,
you might want to go somewhere else on a Sunday if you don't want to be asked this question. No, seriously.
But look, there's many obvious reasons why people, you must have known from many people, who are atheists, why they think that.
I'm giving you credit as an intelligent person for having your own intelligent, thought-out reasons, right? Just assuming you're like anyone else.
Yeah.
Because I'm interested to know what your reasons are. Because I don't think there are any good reasons for doubting the existence of God. I think lots of good reasons for the existence of God.
Are you talking about generic God?
Was generic God.
So I don't want to talk about any particular religion, but we talk about.
Oh no, I'm assuming that the Judeo-Christian Islamic conception
Abrahamic,
of God
yeah.
is the Abrahamic conception is essentially the same, which it is in philosophy. So I'm just wondering what your reasons were for coming to doubt the existing.
Sorry to interrupt everybody. Everybody's all over the world want to ask you one question. Have you left Islam?
No.
You heard that here live, yeah?
The second question is, no, I'm not married.
Yes.
And the third question is my bank account number, if you want to make... No,
I need the PIN number. Only me. So you heard it here, guys, yeah? Brother Paul has not left Islam.
So some brothers, because I made comments about... I don't really
Leaving the tribe of Speaker's Corner. I know
Yeah,
what you
it's
meant
about
by
the
that.
Ummah. I made comments because there's something particularly unfortunate that I got pissed off and said that I've left the Ummah. That was interpreted by certain individuals who have something going for me as leaving Islam. It's not the same thing, although it might be seen the same thing. And it's like when I said I was...
Shall I leave it like
It's like the same thing happened when I said I made it public that I was gay, but strictly accepting the Islamic teaching. But there's still some brothers going around now who are saying I want to change Islam. They're actually saying this, and I don't agree. That's not true. I've never said
You're
that.
a non-practicing.
Yes.
Yes. You made that clear.
Yes, but
There
I
you
made
go.
that clear so many times before. I don't need to repeat it myself. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have to justify myself.
Yes.
I've said it enough. But there are still brothers now in the last week who are going around saying, "I want to change the religion. I'm trying to bring in something that is not part of." That's complete rubbish. I just want to bring in a discussion and education about why people like me who try to follow God's way are not animals, like some individuals down here call me. But also, we're not like the modernists who want to change the religion.
Okay.
We
So
just
you don't want to change Islam or anything like that?
So people have taken certain statements that I've made, and I would argue willfully twisted them to use against me. Those are the two examples I can think of at the moment.
People are saying you're trying to justify.
I get that all the time. I think, I've lectured in mosques about this. It's all on YouTube. You can see it. And I've never for a second hinted or even suggested that Islam should be changed. That's not my agenda. But I could do that. I mean, this is London. I'm a free agent. If I wanted to, I could say that. No one is pressuring me to do anything. I'm an Englishman in London. If I want to say what hell I like, as big as I could. But I assure you, I'm not. I accept what God says in the Quran. It says the only legitimate place for sexual intimacy is heterosexual marriage. I've only ever said that. I made it clear in statements and lectures. But because I've come out as gay, because I'm trying to make a point about treating people well, others have twisted that to say I'm trying to change the religion. And what can I say? I mean, I'm not going to forever try and defend myself. I'm just saying, okay, if they want to believe that, they believe that. That's their business.
Well, do you mind if I just wrap up the discussion? I don't know if you want to finish.
No, if we don't discuss it.
No, everyone was asking.
Because I actually thought I'd have
Some
a
of the
discussion.
far right people have been like having like parties, like Paul's left Islam and has he left Islam?
Some people like the idea. I think they find it difficult to.
Yeah.
See, I'm not a Bangladeshi from East London, as I'm a white. All power to you. But what is a white dude doing coming into this religion? It's all very it's hard work sometimes because I have like a dual identity.
Yeah, I know.
It's hard work.
Why do you think you have to answer for everything to people? It's not fair to you. You shouldn't have to answer.
You're reasonable, I know, but if you look at comments on YouTube and also people and on Twitter, people are saying, oh, he's done this. Actually, if you look at what I've said, I haven't said that. I've never said that. But they want to use it. There's certain, I'm reluctant to mention names, the individuals down here who literally, when I walk past them, they curse me because of what I've said. They curse me. I mean, and when I say I'm not part of this ummah, and I've said that because I was so pissed off. People interpret that to mean I've left Islam. But it's not to do with God and His Prophet. It's not the issue. The issue is
It seems like they want to
Muslims.
Control your.
Some Muslims are the most uncivilized people I've ever met.
Yeah, there's many types of uncivilized.
But they want you to be their type of Muslim rather than your own.
Some don't. Some want to be themselves.
The thing is, I've no reason to lie. If I want, as I say, in London, I can say what I want. If I really wanted to pretend, to have an agenda to change Islam, not that I could say that. No one's holding me hostage. I've got a family who are going to disagree with me. My family aren't Muslim. My employer's not Muslim. I don't have any. You know what I mean? I'm not in that culture, so I could say it if I wanted to, but I'm not saying it. I never have said it.
If you
once.
were following that agenda, you wouldn't bring it up.
No,
You'd do
exactly.
it covertly,
Yeah,
wouldn't
that's
you?
true. That's true. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, maybe I should.
How's the Ramadan?
Oh, he's walking.
Full. How's the Ramadan?
Alhamdulillah, we've just lost
You know, can I ask you a question? Do you know
How
a guy
depressing. I
called-
was about to talk to him about his beliefs.
I'm looking for a guy called Safe who came in.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know him?
Yeah, well, I know you. Yeah, I used to know, but he's not around very much.
He's disappeared. He used to come and speak to him.
He did actually. He did. No, I do. Yeah, I never had a number or anything. I know what you mean. Yeah.
I remember. I just asked you because I remember him speaking to you
Yeah,
at the same
yeah,
time
yeah,
as me.
yeah.
So
I don't know. He looks after his mother, who's quite
Yeah.
elderly on a wheelchair, and
maybe it's that then.
maybe it's that. I don't know. I have no idea, unfortunately.
If you find out anything, let me know because I'd like to speak to
Well, we will. I'd be happy to see. I mean, I never saw him down here really. Yeah. In the last few years, so. Right, so I think that's it. Shall we nick this? Yes.
Because there's a thing gone round YouTube, I saw it. Is that fake from you? Or is that real?
It's someone of a very extreme mentality who has done that video.
So it's not real. So they made out it was you saying I'm leaving the religion.
Yeah.
I thought this might be the case, but I wasn't sure. Which is fine. I just thought it was a bit.
Concentration, man. I don't mind. I don't mind. I'll do the concentration because I don't mind. We'll just.
He's one of the guys that always promotes it. Hello, mate.
We'll do it next time. Yeah. I'm tired now. Just wait.
You know why they did that, don't you? Thanks for that, Paul. Anyway, so I'm going to ask you. I don't always believe what they say.
Content over everything. Content over everything. From now to Come, man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa salatu wa salamu ala rasuli wa al-mabba. It's not really a message. Been having a discussion with these two gentlemen right here. I just wanted to touch on a few topics. We briefly discussing veganism, the whole issue about consuming meat. We briefly spoke about the whole Windrush scandal. Again, I'm not too knowledgeable about that topic.